After installing K-Approval, you need to set the organization first. Log on as admin and click on Manage Apps. Navigate to find K-Approval and use the Organization Management menu. You can see the organization structure as a chart or add an item into the organization in the Organization tab. You can manually add organization data. Or open the LDAP screen and use organization data automatically entered. You can also use the CSV upload option and manually import the organization data. After entering data, click on the Save button and the organization data is successfully registered. You can also define roles in the Role tab. The data set in this tab can be used when you set approval path later. The Member tab shows users in Jira group. And you can set which roles these users will work at K-Approval. These roles are used when the approval path is set in the issue, as these users can serve as approvers for each role set in this tab. Next, we will move on to approval path settings. If you click on Approval Path Management in the K-Approval menu for admin, now we're going to add a new path here. We will set the path name first as Production Deployment Approval. There are 3 approval types, and we will select Approval here. We will fill in the sequence name blank as Reviewer and select Individual as the approver type to directly designate the approver. Now we can see the list of users registered in Jira. We will set the user who will perform the approval. Let's select John Doe as the first reviewer. We will enter Team Lead in the sequence name this time, and select Individual again as the approver type. After adding each user, we can see John Doe and Michael Shin are set as approvers. After clicking on the Save button, we can see the approval path successfully set. After setting the approval paths like this, we need to map these paths by linking them to the workflows in Jira. We can map at the project level. If you select the project and the issue type for mapping of the approval path, the workflow applied is dynamically shown. We need to select the workflow state to map the approval path. We are selecting the workflow state in Jira here. We have 2 options, approved and denied in the state deployment approval. If you have approved, select approved in the approval transition menu. If you have denied, select denied in the reject transition menu. The last thing we should do to update the approval process is to move the application toggle. If you click on the Save button, the approval path is updated. We can click on Approval Path Management to check whether the data has been successfully registered, and the data registered is shown here. If you want to edit the existing approval path data, click on the Edit button and you can edit data on the screen. Now we will see how to create issue data in Jira where the approval path is applied. Click on the Create button in the main menu of Jira, and select the project and the issue type the approval has been applied. Let me show you the case of the user story named Login. You can see the approval path information currently available for this story. If the state set for the approval becomes active, the approval is processed according to the approval settings. We cannot see the approval button here as we are not in the state where the approval can be made. The approval button is shown to the approver when the state requiring approval is activated. Let me enter data now. The data entered is registered like this. Now we're going to see the workflow in detail. K approval is applied in the deployment approval status. We cannot perform the approval process until this status is activated. I'm going to click on the next button to reach the status where we can click on the approval button. Now we are at the deployment status where the approval button is activated. But we do not see the approval button now as the user currently logged on is not John Doe who is an approver. This is the scope available for a requester. Now we're going to see how to give an approval. After installing K approval, the menu K approval is shown in the main menu. The user who has received the request for an approval can see the data about the approval requested by selecting Pending in the Approval Receive menu. As I have logged on as John Doe, we can see the approval button now. When the approver clicks on the approval button, the approver needs to enter the Jira login password and the comments about the approval. After the approval is processed, the issue is not shown in the pending screen anymore and its status is changed into approved. The approver can confirm the approval comments entered here. Now I will log on as the next approver and process the approval. This approver can also see an approval requested in the Approval Receive menu. I'm going to process the approval received by Michael Shin, the second approver. When all the approvals requested are processed, the workflow automatically moves on to the next status. We can see the workflow, which was in the deployment approval status, automatically changed into the production deployment status after all approvals requested were processed. Now I'm going to introduce additional features of K approval. We may need a report about the approval history after registering the approval path data. You can see the approval history in the report menu. You can see the approval data by issue type or approval path name. You can also set the start date and the end date for search. You can also change the UI, where the approval path data is displayed. There are 4 UI options in K approval. If you change and save the UI, the newly selected UI is applied. Let me select another type, and you can see the new UI applied in the screen.